Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Happiness Chat. I really like what Mr. Narayan Murthy said. Doctors have a big responsibility of bringing smiles on the faces of suffering humanity. I can't think of a more relevant time than now to express our gratitude to the entire medical fraternity for protecting us against the deadly virus. If I had to introduce my guest today, it would take up all the time of our chat because her list of awards, recognitions, and accomplishments run into pages. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Manjula Anagani to the Happiness Chat today. Dr. Manjula has pioneered new laparoscopic techniques, and in recognition of her outstanding work in 2015 was awarded with the prestigious Padma Shri. She is also recognized by the Guinness World Records for removing the largest number of uterine fibroids in a single operation. She and her team removed 84 fibroids through a minimally invasive surgery. Thank you so much for joining me in the Happiness Chat today. I am truly delighted to have you as my guest.
Thank you, Shilpa, for inviting me for your program. As the name denotes, Happiness Chats always gives me happiness looking at you, and it's my privilege to be a part of the show.
Thank you so much, Doc. I heard your TED talk that you are a rebel, but a rebel with a cause right from childhood. Please take us through your journey and share with us how the rebel in you inspired you to achieve all that you have.
Thank you, Shilpa, for this question because I think we are labeled rebels when we start believing in ourselves and we start doing things which is not the norm of that particular era or time. So in 70s, when we talk about gender bias and everything now, it is much better now. Gender bias is hardly there, I would say now, as far as parents are concerned. But yes, it was little more rampant in those days in the sense of like giving the freedom to play on the roads or freedom to do choose what we want to do or anything like that. But then inherently when we have this God's gift of trying to analyze, we start analyzing everything. So then we say, why should your brother or somebody play on the road even at 8 in the night in the night, and they can do whatever they want, and why can't we do? So from there comes the thing of inquisitiveness. And then when the teachers give you the freedom to think out of the box and tell you to come up with it, then we think, okay, what is it which is causing us think and then answer like this? Why are we doing what we are supposed to do? See, all these questions when it comes, then my cause was to understand how am I actually speaking when I'm thinking something. How is my brain telling my hands to do this, and why is my body listening to it? So this is the cause with which I started. When at fourth class I decided I'll be a doctor to understand, because in those days we never had the concept of scientist and trying to analyze that. So for us it was like either medicine or engineering or teacher or something. So and those days again, it was very early. Marriages were quite rampant, in the sense 18 years was always there, but then still the girls were married off fast. So I was like, no question till it is till the education is over. So when we see that, and then there will be this inherent pride, I would say, self-respect and pride. For anybody starts questioning you, you get it, and then you want to give them the correct logical answer. That's the reason when we understand knowledge is power, and you start accruing knowledge more and more. In the same way, when we go, when I say I was a rebel, it is not just against the people, against the nature, against the way we are destined to be. So yes, destiny is there, but we don't have to accept the destiny. Destiny changes the way we look at it. You are a biggest example for it, according to me. When you fought against all your problems, and then you could go through the physiotherapy and then come back and sit in front of it the way you're doing. The same way when it comes to health, similar thing happened to me right back in 1993 till today. So I have been having this health issues, which I thought, no, why should I accept it? Accepting is equivalent to failure if you don't have an analyzing brain and you want to come out of it and come up with a solution for yourself. So solutions either has to be told or you have to create them. So I came up with the way I, very luckily, me being a doctor helped me a lot. So when people, doctors, fraternity as such, do not have time for themselves, when they don't have time to analyze things. Because me being a doctor, I started analyzing my own things and go up with an answers to them and tell them, see, this is what it is. So I think this is my diagnosis. Can you please look into it? So that helped me a lot. So I fought against it, many things, gamut of problems which came to me, both in self-help thing, fighting against the genders, which was not so much in my case, because people just paved way for me because seeing my knowledge and my memory, which is God's gift. Then when it comes to practice, yes, I had to literally fight it out in the initially in the stages, in the sense, in those days, doctor and a gynecologist means they should look like a senior most woman, not a tiny, tiny, puny girl. I cannot change my physical self. So it took some time for people to understand I'm not the junior doctor, I am a specialist. And then we also have to fight against going into a newer era of minimally invasive surgery, which in the world it was just emerging. And when we come up with a newer techniques, when we fight it out, we have to convince our colleagues, our teachers, our fraternity in general, and the public, and then allowing them and telling them to accept the new thing which is going to be beneficial for them. So the benefit has to be told to our fraternity, which have to come back and learn the new things, which is again like a rebel in that. So I think it helped me a lot because I believed in the causes, Shilpa, that unless you love yourself, you cannot love others. That is my first thing, which I understand, and I love myself, and I think, and believe in yourself. I believe in myself that whatever I do, it is for the betterment of the science in general and for the patient's outcome. And for me, comfort of the surgeon and safety of the patient comes first. So those are the things I believe in.
Wow, awesome. So coming from your first question, the second one comes, being a rebel, you obviously wanted to break some norms. In science, what
Yeah.
is the norm today is outdated tomorrow. So
Yes.
which norms worth mentioning have you broken, and what has been the outcome of that?
See, norms mentioning is definitely in laparoscopy, if I tell. Originally, when minimally invasive surgery came, naturally men were the ones who started. So it is according to their ergonomics, they make the path. See, when we have to go into the abdominal cavity through a telescope, it is something which is new for anybody. Means we are not touching the tissues, we are going through the telescope and seeing things, and through the instruments we are touching. So how do we operate was the main thing. So everybody were learning, everybody were starting things, and there is something called contralateral ports and then ipsilateral ports. Means opposite side people put it and put the hands like this and operate. Then when it comes to long standing surgeries and longer duration and number of surgeries, it is the shoulders and the ergonomics which are very important for a surgeon. Means their back, their shoulders, everything should be in a proper way so that we can operate for long. And I am no longer intending to retire very fast, and I don't want to make my physical body a wreck. So that's when we started literally fighting with people and norm and said, no, the comfort is the norm and the safety is of the patient is the norm. So the ports, how we enter, are not important. So that's why the first thing breakthrough, when we started doing the ipsilateral ports and we started fighting about it. That is something which we could do. And the second thing which I thought is the norm is the entry technique. When people found it very difficult, the first port is the blind port. So that's when we started a newer ergonomic entry where it is the most safest entry port, and then rest of the things, everything. And if there is a primary amenorrhea, in the sense, a girl who is 18 years and 20 years, they did not attain menarche because of either absent organs with Mullerian anomalies like uterus being absent and the cervix being absent and the vagina being absent, that girl is left alone as a destitute for life. So that's when we said there's quite a few numbers. We think maybe because we are tertiary care, we see as high as 20 to 30 cases every year, something like that. So that's when we started, no, we have two functions which is important for a woman. One is a normal sexual life, second is reproductive function, that is giving childbirth. So with IVF facilities, many of the childbirth issues have been sorted, but when it comes to neovagina, that is creating a new vagina for a girl so that they can have a normal sexual life, the things were all still in a confused state with plastic surgeons coming in, so many people entering and doing it. Then we started a new technique which has become quite popular, published everywhere in the international journals, about 10 to 15 minutes minimally invasive technique where we could create using without any organs coming there and all, and having a normal sexual life. And people can also go in for IVF with surrogate technique with the children. So this is one more norm we could break in the things, and which has become a norm now. And then probably some other technique would come up and take over. That is something which is different. So in the laparoscopy, we could do many new scooping techniques, and we talk about myoma retrieval techniques, all those things which we could do. So leaving that alone, I think when you said breaking the things and making a new norm, we made it understood by the people in general that lady surgeons are more gentle and with the tissues rather than the male surgeons. And surgeons does not mean males. There are very good female surgeons. When it comes to me, when we do advanced laparoscopy training courses all over India and internationally, people come to learn with us. And other fraternity people also, like oncosurgeons, general surgeons, urologists, they too come to us for 2 days to get trained with our minimally invasive techniques and the TVTO procedures and everything, and go back. So that is a norm which we could make it that, yes, people do come and learn from a lady surgeons, and that too, we can accept woman as a boss is something which we could prove.
That is just so awesome to know. So you're a pioneer in minimally invasive laparoscopy. How has that revolutionized the health of women in general?
See, olden days, Shilpa, a surgery means the whole family has to be ready, and then the finances were involved and people were involved, because if she starts go, she's in the hospital, who will take care of the family, who is going to cook, all those things have to happen. It has to be a program, a planned program, and the woman is off the work for about 4 to 6 weeks and all that. And slowly our joint families have become nuclear families, where it's only the husband, wife, and two people should be earning to make the ends meet. So when it is that, women stop telling about their problem because how can I take a break, all these things, and the mental turmoil she used to undergo because of the health issue which has bogged her down. So with minimally invasive surgeries, it became a daycare surgeries, in the sense they can come, most of the surgeries, they can come in the morning, get it done, by evening they're home. Then within a week max, they can go back to their official work, whatever work they have to do. If it is a little bigger surgeries like myomectomy or hysterectomy, still within a week they can go back to their jobs. Yeah, there are certain restrictions we do tell them, but maximum 24 to 48 hours they are in the hospital, that's it. So the advantages basically for the patient is the infection rates are less, she's immediately ambulated, so there is no complication rates are much lesser, there are no blood clot issues, they can eat normally, drink normally, there's no restriction of anything, they can do whatever they want. For the surgeon, it was a huge advantage. What we were doing in a restricted environment of open surgeries, we would open, and if we need to see more, we would open much more. So that would lead to a much more panoramic view. Means if you, I always tell the patients only one thing: you want to see the moon with the naked eyes, they look very beautiful. Moon is very beautiful, but if you actually want to see what's happening inside, you put a telescope, you can see the crevices which are there on the rocks which are there on the moon. The same way when we are doing, we can see a much more 10 times magnified image, and the neighbors can be seen clearly, everything can be seen. It's like Google Earth. So we can see everything, then we can operate with more precision, least blood loss, and the least complication rates, which is like magnificent, big, huge leap in the science and even for the woman. I think now more and more people are just undergoing surgery and not even telling their relatives that we are undergoing surgery. In the sense, they take it as a norm because this has changed, completely revolutionized the healthcare of a woman. Yes, it is a little more expensive, but what is cost of a woman sitting at home for 6 weeks, other people losing their jobs and coming and staying with her? What is the cost of her losing the monthly salary? All those things will be taken to think, and the complications. I think this is a huge benefit.
I'm a living proof of that. I came in, you did my surgery at 8 in the morning. Next
Yes.
day, 8 o'clock, I was out of the hospital. And I remember I never told anybody. Of course, I told my family in India. So my father and sister had flown in. You met them. And then I put it on Facebook when I did a little video. And I'm walking out of the hospital and I'm saying a thank you to you, as well as to all the staff and the nurses who helped. And I get so many messages: you had a surgery, you had a surgery, kind of a thing. So nobody knew about it. So I can totally resonate because I have gone through it. But one thing I have to tell you, Dr. Manjula, you may know, you may not know, that the nurses asked me, uh, who is the surgeon who's operating? So I said, it's Dr. Manjula. Oh, then 24 hours you're out. She's got magic hands. She's got magic hands. So I was like, okay, I thought a surgery is a surgery. Then I realized when they asked me whether I will be there for 2 days, 3 days, but the minute I took your name, it was like a zip, zap, zoom, and you're out of there. So I'm very, very lucky. Thank you so much. So tell me, your time management and your stamina, besides your professional expertise, are outstanding. What motivates you to perform at such a high level, and that too day after day?
Yeah, that's a question. I would just say that I think it's all in the brain. If you energy comes from the brain and the intention to do it, and I have managed to have the art of parallel thinking in the sense, like, I divide. I automatically, my brain will divide itself, like, if that has to be done, A, B, C, all these things have to go parallelly. So we do it the same work when we were kids. We were taught in the general knowledge classes and all that, when one person can do this much in so much time, how much can four persons do? So if a one person cannot become four people, we can have our mind process can be parallelized into four things. That is what I do, in the sense, if I have the things to be done, and I can run three theaters at the same time, by the time the anesthesia is given, I can operate the other thing and all that. So these are certain things which I do, so that I do that. And then my family, when it comes, this like super 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 cooperative and supportive, and I do give them my time the completely. People don't believe, they think half the time I'm in the hospital. According to my Garka people, my daughter, I am half the time at home only. So it is like that. And I think, but still I feel, 24 hours is not sufficient, no. Actually 34 hours is a short time, and we have to sleep too. And when it comes to talk, I don't believe other people making PowerPoints and videos. I edit my own videos, and then I do my own PPTs, fine tuning and everything, and the talk. Yeah, but I think where there's a will, there's a way. If you're having a good secretary and you have good team, and whom you can delegate the work, and the team, everybody does their own work properly, which is they're properly trained. So for me, it is 60s. One is a team, one is a technique. Come take over the technique which comes, which is something you have to learn. The second, the third is technology. Technology is something which keeps changing for the betterment of the surgeries, betterment of the outcome. Please accept them and move forward. It might be costly, but take it. And the team, like I said, it should be wonderful, and you should be trained properly to do whatever you're training. If you master the training, your time of the surgery will come down drastically. And don't forget to teach. So I believe I have such a huge student line who is be waiting, and so keep teaching, keep teaching, keep teaching, so that we learn so much from them also. So, and finally, I think I have to say that for everybody, that your temperament is something which is going to make you whatever you are. So just because you are angry, you cannot show it on your team. Yes, at that minute, if you say, shout at them, please take them together, love them again, and say sorry, so that you're not going to become a smaller person by saying sorry. So I think these all helped me to be where I am now.
No, but dog, it's your stamina also.
Yeah.
Because I have met you at 8 a.m., just before my surgery, when your hello and your warm hug, and at 8 p.m., when you've been standing on your feet for I don't know how many hours, and it's the same warm hug, the same exuberant hello, your stamina just amazes me. How do you do it? I don't
I
know.
think it's God's gift, Rick. That's God's gift. I think, and I always believe it's inside this. That's it. You want to
That's
do it, you can do it.
that's so wonderful. So you believe in preventive gynecology and promote the same. What does that mean exactly?
People forget that there is some things which can be started now, which can prevent so many things later. Like, for example, when I say, there is like how we have banks, we put money in the bank so that when we retire, we have to use it. Similarly, bone bank. Bone bank is developed when you're in teens, when you're in 13 years, 14 years, 15 years. That is, your bone is full of calcium. If you take adequate calcium in those days, your bone will be more strengthier. The same way, if you do regular pap smears, you can pick up at the infection stage that you do not allow it to go into cancer stage. Means if there is something which can be removed with a nail, you should not be taking a knife to go behind it. So same way, like I say, menopause, after menopause, there are so many things that can happen, like breakage of bones. Till that time, we should be proud that of being a woman and thankful to God that we are women, because we have estrogen, which helps us in our brain memory, in our not getting the fractures so much and the heart attacks so much. But later, if all these things, menopause ke baad, when we lose estrogen, that's when we have lots of fractures, bone become fragile, and all those things happen. So if we are careful and not get scared and think that if we go to doctor, they will give you diseases. No, doctors don't give you diseases. They pick up things very fast. So I believe that women after 40 should be taking their calciums and multivitamin supplements regularly. And they have to understand the difference between supplements, medication, and replacements. Supplements is what a body needs it, not produced by it, like multivitamins or trace elements, and you have to apply, give it to them, iron and all that. Second is when you are taking about medication. Medication is for a disease. Means you have a respiratory infection, you take medicines for 5 days, 10 days. So it is still the disease is there, you take it and then you stop it. Okay, you don't need it. But the final thing is replacement, which your body has to produce, which your body is producing, not from outside, and it is not producing adequately, so you take it from outside, like thyroid replacement, estrogen replacement. When this misconceptions go from the brain, then you know what you have to take, how you have to take, whether you have to take or not to take. But who is going to tell? Either a doctor has to tell, or a government has to take, or a media should help us spread it. So I believe all three together should be spreading this thing about importance of how to prevent cancer cervix by giving vaccination. That is something which we have to understand. HPV is the cause for 100% of your cancer cervix. So when primary screening is there, you have to give it. The secondary screening is by pap smears. Please do it regularly as a norm, as a government. Please promote that. Then mammograms. Do you need it? Self-breast examination is more important. So who is going to teach the self-breast examination to the patient? So tell them to do it every month, first day of period regularly. And if they feel something, go to a doctor and let the doctor examine. And if there is something, please get a mammogram done. Too many of mammograms are not necessary, but you should know self-breast examination every month is more important than anything else. Routine after menopause, doing an ultrasound pelvis and seeing if the endometrium is thickened more than 4 mm. See, by the time endometrial hyperplasia becomes a cancer or infection from the cervix becomes cancer, it is almost 10 years. Means we can prevent it from becoming cancer. So this is what is something which is awareness, which we all have to spread.
Absolutely. Awareness, education, it can be so preventive and so useful. I think a doctor-patient trust is so vital. In today's very commercial world, how do you get that in the first place and then maintain it?
I think the truth, when a doctor says, is something which can emanate from the person. Patient will know whom to believe, and it is the human touch. Agreed, people have become very defensive. Luckily, in India, still that doctor-patient trust is still there. But as and more, patients have started more legally, in the sense, litigants, in the sense they start questioning everything which a doctor says, and doctors automatically become defensive. So once the defensive practice starts, the essence of the whole treatment is gone. In the sense, I would say that people go, science is different, maths is different. People go out of the way to do better things for the patient. Sometimes when we go inside and see, because the patient is anesthetized, when we go inside and see and we see something is there which is not good for the patient, we go out, we go and do it because we know patient is going to trust us. But later, if the patient is going to come out and say, I didn't tell you to do that, why did you do? I'm going to sue you. Doctors will stop doing it, even if it is for the good of the patient. So it is both ways. Doctors have become defensive because litigant patients have increased. Litigant patients have increased because of the bad experiences they had with some of the doctors. So I'm not going to say that both are right or anything. What I said, I tell the patient is, please do your own homework completely. But once you meet your doctor, select your doctor, once you know and you trust your doctor, leave it to them. They will do what is the best for you, because they have seen the variants. You are, what is there inside, you are not going to be there to see, because you are going to be anesthetized. So please trust the doctor, and the doctor's duty is to explain to them the different varieties of presentations and what they are going to do if they see something like that. Like for example, if the infertility patient comes to us, in patient who want to conceive, we will tell them we are going to do a hysteroscopy and laparoscopy, and if I see a septum inside, that is a wall like thing, I'm going to cut it. If it's not there, perfect. If I'm going and seeing the tube is blocked, I'm going to open it. So everything has to be told beforehand. If I'm opening it and then patient says, why did you open? That's not the way to go forward. So I think the consents go a lot way, and only experience should rebuild the trust between the doctor and the patient.
Actually, I remember when I had come to meet you for the first time, I had no idea that the within 1 week I will be inside the OT. It was just like a hello, and I have this problem, and just to talk to you. And the way you drew the diagrams and you put all the options in front of me, that okay, if this is required, I'll do this. If that is required, I'll do this. And you said, okay, and I'm back in Dubai next Monday. You want to do it then? And I just said yes. And I remember my husband Vijay was sitting next to me, and I would not even agree to go to see a dentist for a cavity filling. Even on that, I will think, oh no, should I go? Should I not? Kind of a thing. And to agree for it, but it was just like an instant connect sometimes you feel.
I
And
know.
I think, Doc, it was your, transparency that if this is required, we'll do it. If it's not required, if it's okay, we leave that. And everything. And when you see a person so much in command, you can see the expertise and the experience staring at your face. Then you say, this is the person, and you do whatever you think is right, and I know you'll do the best. So I'm very happy I came to the best. That is, I
Thank
was
you.
truly fortunate. So tell me, after receiving so many awards and recognitions, what goals do you have in mind?
Now actually saying that I will continue work. I don't know. I keep telling people I want to retire. It's already so many, more than 25 years. How many more years I should work? But then I know that I will not be retiring. The teaching is my passion, which I will continue doing it. Even if I'm not, I will decrease. Maybe I will semi-retire, because I always wanted to do medicine sans frontiers, that is certain places which can go, which is like Doctors Without Borders. I really don't know whether I will be able to do it or not, because once my family responsibilities are over, I really want to do it. So that is my goal, but I really don't know whether I will be doing it or not.
Oh,
I
that's
hope I will.
wonderful. You are an inspiration to so many people. What advice would you give to the people in these challenging times?
I only want to say that never compromise with happiness. This is my actually motto. If you see my WhatsApp, this thing, it will say that only. See, because what is my happiness might not be your happiness. So, but at that, and what is my happiness today might not be my happiness tomorrow also. I'm not saying that, but in that minute, if you feel happy doing something, you should be doing it. And believe in yourself, and never, never, ever lose an opportunity, because opportunity is definitely like a bald man with few hair strands in front, and if you don't hold it when it comes in front of you, thinking that should I do, should I not do, it will go, it will never come back to us. So I always say yes to anything which anybody, any challenge which people say, and then I'll think of how to achieve it. When we sit and concentrate, you can definitely achieve it. And Shilpa, definitely 100% is necessary to become successful is what people say, but 97% is definitely the hard work. And the 3%, when we say luck, it is needed. Luck is needed to make it 100%. Now, luck is favored or given to you by destiny, depends on, again, on your temperament, the type of person you are. So I think, like you said, any person, if Shiddat say, Andar say, they want to do good, that 3% automatically will come. And if you're thinking of doing for the best of the other person, not for yourself, and that is going to happen. So these are few things which I want to tell people. As one finally I want to say is, live life after death. So donate organs. That is something which I would definitely want people to do, because I already pledged my organs, and I want everybody to do it because we can save so many people.
Absolutely. And Doc, one thing which totally fascinates, I know I spoke about stamina. This is a supplementary question. From where do you get your energy? I am.
From your smile. From your smile.
Oh, that's not, that's just so
No,
sweet of you.
basically it is from the people. When I see people, I mean, I really get so much energy seeing people, seeing. I think that is the truth with everybody. If you're alone, you will be definitely lethargic and you will be depressed or whatever. I'm a people person and I'm a hugger. I hug people. I don't know. That's what it is. I mean, I always say, Corona really is like, don't hug the things. At least not even shake hand things. I am like, what is Corona doing to everybody?
Yes,
You're all seeing from there.
I remember your warm hug. Oh my
I
God.
know.
I
And
was,
actually, the
I was,
touch conveys so much. When we touch person, we convey so much. We don't have to talk also. You know, energy. Everybody asks me that. Everybody says there's a walking telescope going. There are so many comments people make about it. They say Simata Pakai. They say she's like that. She's like this. All that is true, but I feel energy comes from within, Shilpa. I really don't know how it comes. That's it. God's gift again.
yes, truly, because I remember when you spoke about your hug, you actually had me a bit rattled because I'm lying down on the OT table waiting for you, and you come and you give me a warm hug, and I was like, oh my God, really? So you are totally not the surgeon, a mental
Typical.
image that we have, those very serious looking people, with your big smile, your hello and your hug, you make the patient relax. I was so relaxed, like anesthesia was just happened. I was so relaxed before my surgery, all thanks to you. So tell me, Doc, you did touch upon happiness, but what does happiness mean to you?
Anything which makes me smile is happiness to me. That is it. Simple. I'm a simple person. For me, if I see a comedy scene and I laugh it out, I really enjoy. I mean, that is happiness. In that minute, if I'm happy, that is what is something which I do. I watch a lot of, I'm a movie buff. South Indians as such, are movie buffs, especially Telugu people are, and I am. So I enjoy the situational comedy more than the dialogues and all, and really, really enjoy doing that. So for me, happiness is seeing an old friend after such a long time. For me, happiness is the patient becoming fine and happy. For me, happiness is when an infertile patient of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years can become pregnant. If a recurrent pregnancy loss of 7 times, 8 times abortions, and then they become pregnant, all these things are happiness for me. But saying that as profession is my passion. So first is profession, but my daughter is my life. So anything good happening to her is definitely my happiness.
Oh, that's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. I love that. The way it's such simple, simple things like comedy scenes, meeting your friends, and of course, seeing your one's children happy is really the biggest happiness. So it's been so rejuvenating, insightful, and inspiring to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking out the time and having this chat with me today.
Thank you, Shilpa. Always a pleasure talking to you. All the best.
And I would like to end with a quote of William Osler dedicated to you. A good physician treats the disease, but a great physician treats the patient who has the disease. So thank you so much for being who you are.
Thank you.
And until
Bye.
we meet again, everybody, please be happy, be safe. Thank you.